I stood in my childhood living room, holding a lottery check for $660,000. My mother's voice cut through the silence, demanding I give half to my sister Grace, who had always been the favorite. My father nodded in agreement, arms crossed. Grace smirked from the doorway, already counting her share. I realized in this moment that no amount of money would ever make me equal in their eyes. I had a choice to make, and 30 years of being invisible suddenly crystallized into clarity. The morning had started so differently. I was at the quick stop on Maple Avenue, filling up my truck before work, when I decided to check my lottery ticket. $5 I had spent on a whim 3 days earlier. I pulled out my phone, brought up the winning numbers, and checked once, then twice, then a third time, my hand starting to shake. All 6 numbers matched. $660,000. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, just staring at that ticket, unable to process what had just happened. I had never won anything in my life. Never been lucky. Never been the chosen one. That was always Grace. Growing up, Grace got everything. When she turned 16, our parents bought her a Honda Accord, brand new, with a big red bow on top. I got a card that said, "Congratulations on getting your license," and maybe some gas money if I was lucky. When Grace wanted to go to State University, they paid every cent of her tuition, her room and board, her meal plan, even her sorority fees. When I graduated high school, my father handed me a community college catalog and said, education was an investment I needed to make in myself. I worked 2 jobs through community college. Nights at a warehouse, weekends doing landscaping. Took me 5 years to get my associate degree, because I could only afford part-time classes. Grace finished her bachelor's in 4 years, then decided she wanted a master's degree in communications. They paid for that too. Meanwhile, I was living in a basement apartment that flooded every spring, driving a pickup truck with 200,000 miles on it, and eating ramen 4 nights a week. But I never complained, never asked them for help. I figured maybe if I was independent enough, strong enough, successful enough on my own, they would see me, really see me. The lottery win felt like the universe finally giving me a break. I drove straight to my parents' house. I wanted to share the news with someone, and despite everything, they were still my family. I thought maybe this would be a moment we could celebrate together. Maybe this would change things. I was so stupid. My mother answered the door, and I told her. I showed her the ticket, my hands still trembling with excitement. She called for my father and Grace. They all gathered in the living room, the same living room where we had opened Christmas presents and celebrated Grace's achievements, and barely acknowledged my existence. My mother looked at the ticket, looked at me, and her first words were not congratulations. "You need to split this with your sister." I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. "Grace has student loans," my mother continued, her voice taking on that tone she used when she had already made a decision and expected compliance. "She needs a down payment for a house. She's going through a difficult time right now, and this money could change her life." I looked at Grace. She was 28 years old, had a master's degree, worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech company making $65,000 a year, and lived in a nice apartment downtown that our parents had co-signed for. "What difficult time? What are you talking about?" I asked. "Grace is doing fine." Grace's eyes immediately welled up with tears. I had seen this performance before. The trembling lip, the glistening eyes, the small voice that made her sound fragile and wounded. "You have no idea what I'm going through, Jake," she said softly. "You never ask. You never care. I've been struggling so much, and you just assume everything is perfect for me." "Struggling with what?" I pressed. "That's not the point," my father interjected, stepping forward. "The point is, family shares everything. We've always been a family that takes care of each other. Your sister needs help, and you have the means to help her. It's the right thing to do." I felt something crack inside my chest. The right thing to do. When had they ever done the right thing by me? When had they ever helped me when I was struggling? I paid my own way through college, I said, keeping my voice level. I worked 2 jobs. I lived in a basement that grew mold. Where was the family help then? You never asked. My mother said simply, as if that justified everything. I shouldn't have to ask. Grace never had to ask. Grace is different, my father said. And there it was. The truth they had never quite said out loud before. Grace was different. Grace was special. Grace deserved things that I did not. No, I said. The word came out harder than I intended. This is my ticket, my win, my money. I'm not splitting it. The room went cold. My mother's face hardened into something I had never quite seen before, pure contempt. Then you're not part of this family, she said. Grace made a small gasping sound, as if she was shocked by such a harsh statement, but I saw the glint in her eyes. She was pleased. My father crossed his arms, standing beside my mother in unified front. You have a choice to make, son. You give Grace $330,000, or you walk out that door and you don't come back. I stood there, the lottery ticket still in my hand, and felt 30 years of being second best, second thought, second choice wash over me. I thought about every time they missed my baseball games because they were at Grace's dance recitals. Every birthday where her gifts were thoughtful and expensive and mine were generic and cheap. Every conversation where her accomplishments were celebrated and mine were met with distracted nods. I'm keeping my money, I said quietly. Grace stepped forward then, and her mask slipped just a little. Her voice was cold when she spoke. You'll regret this, Jake. I'll make sure of it. I turned toward the door. My mother called after me. We've already told people, you know. Your Aunt Margaret, Uncle Frank, the Hendersons from church, all of Grace's friends from her Bible study group. We told them you won, and that you were generous enough to share it with your sister. Everyone knows. Everyone is expecting you to do the right thing. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. You what? My father shrugged. We were proud of you. We told people our son won the lottery and was going to help his sister. It's already out there, Jake. People are already congratulating Grace. What do you think it's going to look like if you take that back now? I stared at them, understanding dawning. This was not just a request. This was a trap. They had already set the stage, already told the story, already positioned me as the villain if I did not comply. Grace was not just smirking now. She was smiling. I walked out. I checked into a Holiday Inn off the interstate, the kind of place where the carpet was stained and the ice machine hummed too loudly. I sat on the bed, the lottery ticket in a plastic sleeve in my wallet, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing around 7 that evening. First, it was a text from my Aunt Margaret. So proud of you for helping Grace. You're such a good brother. Then my cousin Jennifer. Heard about the lottery. Amazing that you're sharing with Grace. Then my Uncle Frank. Your parents raised you right, son. Family first. The messages kept coming. Relatives I had not spoken to in years. Family friends. People from the church my parents attended. All congratulating me for something I had not agreed to do. Then the tone shifted. Around 9, my phone rang. It was Aunt Margaret again, but this time her voice was different. Shaky. Upset. Jake, honey, your mother just called me. She said you're refusing to help Grace? That you're keeping all the money for yourself? Please tell me that's not true. Aunt Margaret, I never agreed to split anything. They demanded I give Grace half, and I said no. It's my ticket. I bought it. But Grace needs help, sweetheart. She's struggling. And you have so much now. How can you be so selfish? Selfish? I've worked for everything I've ever had. Nobody helped me. Why should I just hand over $330,000 to someone who has had everything handed to her? There was a long pause. Then Aunt Margaret said, quietly, "I'm disappointed in you, Jake. I thought you were better than this." She hung up. The calls and texts continued. Some were confused, asking me to explain. Most were accusatory. My Uncle Frank called me greedy. My cousin Jennifer sent a long text about family values and how disgusted she was. Someone I barely remembered from high school sent me a message saying they always knew I was a jerk. Around midnight, I saw that Grace had posted something on Facebook. It was vague, the kind of post designed to generate sympathy without giving details. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Learning hard lessons about family tonight. Grateful for everyone who truly cares. The comments were immediate. Friends offering support, asking what was wrong, telling her she deserved better. A few people commented things like, "Family can be so toxic, and blood doesn't mean loyalty." I knew exactly what she was doing. She was crafting a narrative where she was the victim, and I was the villain, without ever having to say my name. My phone rang again. This time it was Devin, my best friend since high school. We had stayed close, even though life had taken us in different directions. He was one of the few people I actually trusted. "Man, what is going on?" he asked. "I'm seeing all this stuff online about you and Grace. Did you really win the lottery?" I explained everything. The ticket, the confrontation, the ultimatum, the public pressure campaign. Devin listened without interrupting. "That's messed up," he said finally. "Your family is really trying to shake you down for half? Apparently. What are you going to do? Claim the prize tomorrow morning. Then figure out my next move. You need anything? Place to stay? Someone to go with you to the lottery office? I'm good for now. But thanks, man. Means a lot. Just watch your back, Jake. If they're willing to go this far already, they're not going to stop." He had no idea how right he was. The next morning, I drove to the state lottery office in the capital. It was a nondescript building in a business park, the kind of place you would drive past without noticing. I walked in with my ticket, my ID, and a mixture of anxiety and determination. The woman at the counter was pleasant, professional. She checked my ticket, verified my identification, and smiled. "Congratulations, Mr. Barrett. This is a valid winning ticket for $660,000. We'll need to process some paperwork, and then we can arrange payment. Would you like the lump sum or the annuity option?" "Lump sum," I said immediately. She nodded and began typing into her computer. Then she frowned. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "Give me just a moment, please." She picked up her phone, spoke quietly to someone, then hung up. A man in a suit emerged from a back office. He introduced himself as the regional director and asked me to follow him. My stomach dropped. In his office, he gestured for me to sit. He looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Barrett, there's been a complication with your claim. Someone has filed a dispute against this ticket, claiming joint ownership." "What? Who?" "A Grace Barrett. She's claiming that you and she purchased this ticket together as co-buyers and that she's entitled to half the winnings. She's provided a sworn statement to that effect, and she has a witness, your mother, I believe, who states she saw Grace give you money to purchase lottery tickets on her behalf." I could not breathe, could not think. "That's a lie," I said, my voice barely working. "I bought this ticket myself, with my own money. Grace had nothing to do with it. I understand, Mr. Barrett, but we have to take these disputes seriously. Until this is resolved, the payout is frozen. You'll need to work with your attorney to address the claim. I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do until the matter is settled." I walked out of that building in a daze. My lottery win, my one stroke of luck, was now trapped in legal limbo because my own family was willing to lie, to commit fraud, to steal from me. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and called the only person I could think of. Devin. "They filed a legal claim," I told him. "Grace is saying we bought the ticket together. My mother is backing her up. The money's frozen. Devin swore under his breath. Jake, you need a lawyer. Like now. I don't have money for a lawyer. You're about to have $660,000, which I can't access because of this claim. Then get a lawyer who'll work on contingency, or take a retainer you can pay back later. You can't fight this alone, man. He was right. I spent the rest of the day calling attorneys who handled lottery disputes. Most of them wanted retainers I could not afford. Finally, I found one who agreed to take my case. His name was Russell Hayes, a sharp middle-aged man with graying hair and shrewd eyes who practiced out of a small office downtown. This is going to cost you, Russell said bluntly during our first meeting. Lottery disputes can drag on for months, sometimes over a year. Legal fees could run $20,000 or more. Can you afford that? I had about $8,000 in savings. It was everything I had managed to scrape together over the last few years. I'll make it work, I said. Russell nodded. Then let's get to work. The legal process was a nightmare. Grace's attorney, a slick man named Patrick Donovan, who specialized in civil litigation, filed motion after motion. They demanded financial records, depositions, witness statements, anything they could use to build their fabricated case. Grace's story was simple and seemingly airtight. She claimed that she and I had a long-standing agreement to pool our money and buy lottery tickets together. She said she had given me $20 a few weeks ago specifically for lottery tickets, and the winning ticket was one of those purchases. Our mother was prepared to testify that she witnessed this exchange. It was all lies. I had bought that ticket on my own, on a Wednesday morning, with $5 from my own wallet. I had been alone. I had not seen Grace in weeks before I showed up at my parents' house with the winning ticket. But proving that was harder than I thought. Russell explained the problem during one of our meetings. You paid cash, right? At a gas station? Yes. The Quick Stop on Maple Avenue. Do you have a receipt? No. Who keeps receipts for lottery tickets? That's the problem, Jake. There's no paper trail. No credit card record. No proof of individual purchase. It's your word against hers. And she has a corroborating witness. A lying witness. Still a witness. We need something concrete. Security footage. A clerk who remembers you. Something. I went back to the Quick Stop. The owner, a man named Marcus, who I had known casually for years, was sympathetic, but not helpful. I wish I could tell you I remember you specifically, Jake, but we get hundreds of people a day. That was, 3 weeks ago now? I got no memory of that specific transaction. Do you have security footage? Marcus rubbed his jaw. We keep footage for about 30 days, then it records over itself. If it was 3 weeks ago, it might still be there. Come back tomorrow, and I'll see what I can pull up. The next day, Marcus had the footage. We watched it together on his grainy office computer. There I was, walking in, buying a coffee, buying a lottery ticket. The timestamp was right, but the image quality was terrible. You could tell it was a person, could tell roughly what they looked like, but faces were blurred and unclear. It's something, Russell said when I showed him, but it's not definitive. A good lawyer could argue that's not clearly you, or that Grace was with you off camera. We need more. Grace's legal team was relentless. They sent detailed discovery requests, forcing me to produce bank statements, employment records, even my phone records. They were looking for any evidence of communication with Grace about lottery tickets, any financial transactions between us. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. But that did not stop them. During my deposition, Patrick Donovan was cold and methodical. He asked about my relationship with Grace, our childhood, any conversations we might have had about gambling or lottery tickets. He asked about my finances, implying I was so desperate for money that I would cheat my own sister. Isn't it true, Mr. Barrett, that you've struggled financially for most of your adult life? I've worked hard and made my own way. That's not what I asked. Isn't it true that you've lived paycheck to paycheck, that you've had to take out loans, that you've been behind on rent? Sometimes, yes. And isn't it true that your sister has been more financially successful than you? She's had more help. Answer the question, please. Has she been more financially successful? By some measures. So you resented her success. I didn't say that. But you resented the help your parents gave her. You said so yourself, in an interview with the Lottery Commission investigator. It went on like that for hours. Twisting my words, building a narrative where I was jealous, bitter, greedy, where I would lie about the ticket purchase just to keep money away from my more deserving sister. I felt violated, angry, helpless. Then Russell got his hands on something during discovery that changed everything. We were in his office, going through financial records that Grace's team had been forced to produce, when Russell stopped scrolling and leaned forward. "Jake, look at this." He turned his computer screen toward me. It was a bank statement for a joint account. The account holders were listed as Grace Barrett, Susan Barrett, and Thomas Barrett, my mother and father. The account had been opened 3 days before I won the lottery. "Why would they open a joint account right before you won?" Russell asked. Though it was not really a question. "They were planning something," I said slowly, the realization hitting me like cold water. Russell dug deeper. He subpoenaed Grace's phone records. What he found was chilling. For the 3 weeks before I won the lottery, Grace had been tracking my movements. There were photos on her phone, stored in a hidden folder, of me at the quick stop. Multiple photos, from different days, showing me going in and out. Time-stamped, geotagged. She had been watching me, learning my routine, waiting. "This wasn't opportunistic," Russell said, his voice grim. "This was premeditated. She was planning to claim joint ownership of any ticket you won. She's been setting this up for weeks, maybe longer. The joint account with your parents, the surveillance, all of it. She was ready to pounce the moment you got lucky." I felt sick. This was not just greed. This was calculated, malicious. She had been planning to steal from me before I even won. "Can we use this?" I asked. "Absolutely. This goes to credibility and motive. She's not a victim here. She's a predator." But even with that evidence, Patrick Donovan was not backing down. He argued that Grace was simply being thorough, that she had legitimate reasons for tracking the places where they frequently bought lottery tickets together. It was insane, but it was working. The case dragged on. 6 months into the legal battle, my life had fallen apart completely. I had burned through my $8,000 in savings within the first 2 months. Legal fees, living expenses, everything added up faster than I could manage. I was forced to take out a loan against my expected lottery winnings from a company that specialized in lottery advances. They charged 15% interest, and I had to borrow $30,000 just to stay afloat and keep paying Russell. I was drowning in debt before I even touched $1 of my winnings. Then Grace and my parents launched a public relations campaign. It started with a local news story. A reporter had caught wind of the family dispute over lottery winnings and thought it would make an interesting human interest piece. Grace agreed to an interview. My parents agreed to an interview. I declined, on Russell's advice. That was a mistake. Grace sat on camera, tears streaming down her face, and told a story about how close we used to be. How we had always done everything together. How we had dreamed about winning the lottery as kids and promised we would share if it ever happened. How she could not believe that money had changed me so much, made me so cold and cruel. "I just want my brother back," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't even care about the money anymore. I just want my family." My mother sat beside her, holding her hand, nodding along. "We raised Jake to be better than this. I don't know what happened to him. It's like he became a different person the moment he won." My father was interviewed separately. He looked sad, disappointed. "I thought I taught my son about integrity." about taking care of family. This whole situation has broken my wife's heart. The story aired on the local news, and then it was picked up by a few regional outlets, and then it went viral on social media. Suddenly, thousands of people who knew nothing about the real situation were weighing in, calling me selfish, greedy, a terrible brother. Someone created a Facebook group called Justice for Grace, with over 10,000 members. I became a pariah. People recognized me in public. At the grocery store, a woman I had never met walked up to me and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself," then walked away. At a coffee shop, someone threw their drink at me, splashing iced coffee all over my shirt, and called me a terrible brother before storming out. I stopped going out, unless I absolutely had to. Then I lost my job. I had been working in logistics for a small shipping company called Frontier Transport. It was not glamorous, but it paid the bills. And my boss, Craig, had always been decent to me. But the negative publicity was affecting business. Clients were asking about me, uncomfortable with the controversy. One client specifically requested that I not be assigned to their account. Craig called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. He looked genuinely sorry. "Jake, I hate to do this, but I need you to take some time off. Unpaid. Just until this whole thing blows over and the publicity dies down. Craig, I need this job. I'm barely staying above water as it is. I know, and I'm sorry. But this is affecting the company. I've got to think about the business and the other employees. Once things settle down, we'll talk about bringing you back." I was now jobless, broke, buried in debt, fighting a legal battle against my own family, and publicly despised by thousands of strangers. Devin was still in my corner, but even he admitted it was hard to watch. "I don't know how you're holding up, man. I would have lost it by now. I was close to losing it." I considered giving up, offering Grace a settlement, maybe $100,000, just to end the nightmare and move on with my life. Then Russell called with news that nearly destroyed me. "Jake, we've got a problem. Grace's legal team found a technicality. When you filed your initial claim with the Lottery Commission, you checked the wrong box on one of the secondary forms. It's a meaningless clerical error, just paperwork. But they're arguing that it invalidates your entire claim." What does that mean? They're asking the commission to void the ticket entirely. If they succeed, the money goes into a holding account, and if it's not claimed properly within a certain time frame, it could escheat to the state. Basically, they're saying if they can't have the money, no one should. Grace would destroy $660,000 just to hurt me? That's exactly what she's doing. This is about spite now, not money. The hearing is in 2 weeks. I sat in my hotel room that night, staring at the ceiling, and thought about walking away from everything, disappearing, starting over somewhere else, letting Grace win because I did not have the strength to keep fighting. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Hey, Jake." Grace's voice. Smug. Cold. I thought I'd check in, see how you're doing. "What do you want, Grace?" "I want to offer you a deal. Drop the case. Accept $25,000. It's enough to cover your debts, get you back on your feet, and you sign an NDA. Agree to never talk about any of this publicly. I keep the rest of the money. $25,000 out of $660,000? It's more than you deserve, honestly. But I'm feeling generous. Oh, and one more thing. You make a public apology. Tell everyone you were wrong, that you let greed get the better of you, that you're sorry for dragging the family through the mud. You're insane." Grace laughed. It was a genuine laugh, full of genuine amusement. "Maybe, but I'm winning. So what does that make you? Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to you?" Her voice changed then. The mask dropped. Pure venom came through. "You existed. That's what you did. Do you know what it's like to have parents who love you, but who also loves someone else. To have to share their attention, their pride, their affection. I wanted to be an only child, Jake. I should have been an only child. But there you were, always there. And no matter how much they loved me more, they still loved you a little bit. And I hated that. I've always hated that. So this is about destroying me. The money's nice, but yes, this is about destroying you. And I'm going to. Goodbye, Jake. She hung up. I sat there in the dark, her words echoing in my head, and realized that my sister was not just greedy or manipulative. She was genuinely cruel. And she had been waiting for an opportunity like this for years. But then, the next morning, I got an email that changed everything. The sender was someone named Brianna Phillips. The subject line read, "About Grace Barrett." I opened it. "Mr. Barrett, I saw the news coverage about your legal battle with your sister. I went to grad school with Grace a few years ago, and I think you should know who you're really dealing with. If you're interested, I'd like to meet and talk. I have information that might help your case." I called Russell immediately. He told me to set up a meeting, but to be cautious. Could be legitimate, could be a setup. Meet in a public place, and don't say anything you wouldn't want recorded. I met Brianna Phillips at a diner off Route 52 2 days later. She was in her early 30s, professional looking, with dark hair and tired eyes. She ordered coffee and got straight to the point. Grace and I were in the same graduate program, communications and public relations. We were in several classes together, and for a while, we were friendly. Not close, but friendly enough. What happened? I saw what she was capable of. There was another student in our program, a woman named Amanda. Sweet person, really talented. She was working on her thesis, something about crisis management in nonprofit organizations. Grace was working on a similar topic. One day, Amanda's laptop was stolen from the library. She lost months of work, all her research, her drafts, everything. She was devastated. Grace stole it? Grace reported it to campus security, claimed she saw a suspicious person leaving the library around that time. Very helpful. Very concerned. But I found out later, through another classmate, that Grace had Amanda's laptop. She had taken it, copied all her research, and then destroyed it. She used Amanda's work as the foundation for her own thesis. I felt cooled. Amanda had to drop out, Brianna continued. She couldn't recover her research in time, couldn't finish her degree. Her whole career plan was derailed, and Grace graduated with honors using stolen work. Did you report this? I tried. But I didn't have proof, just secondhand information. And Grace was very good at playing the victim, making it seem like people were jealous of her success. Nothing came of it. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw her on the news, crying about how you betrayed her, and I recognized the performance. She's done this before. She ruins people, and then cries about being the victim. I thought you should know. Do you have any evidence? Anything I can use? Brianna reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. I kept emails from that time period. Text messages. There's one recording from a group study session where Grace is bragging, offhandedly, about how easy it is to manipulate people if you know what you're doing. It's not a smoking gun for your case, but it goes to her character. I'm also willing to testify, if it helps. I took the folder with shaking hands. Why would you do this for me? I asked. You don't even know me, because someone should have stopped her with Amanda, and no one did. Maybe I can help stop her now. I left that diner with the first real hope I had felt in months. But I also knew that using this information meant going deeper into the battle, exposing Grace publicly, and risking even more retaliation. I was at the absolute lowest point I had ever been in my life. But suddenly, there was a sliver of light in the darkness. Russell was energized when I showed him Brianna's evidence. He spent hours going through the emails, the text messages, the recording of Grace casually discussing manipulation tactics during a study session. It was not directly related to the lottery dispute, but it painted a picture of who Grace really was. "This is gold," Russell said, sitting back in his chair. "Character evidence. Pattern of behavior. We can argue that Grace has a history of false claims, manipulation, and fraud. It supports our theory that she's fabricated this entire co-purchase story. Will the Lottery Commission allow it? They might fight it, argue it's not directly relevant. But if we can get it in front of them, it could change everything. At minimum, it shows Grace isn't the innocent victim she's portraying herself to be." Russell filed motions to include Brianna as a character witness. Patrick Donovan filed immediate objections, arguing that past allegations, which were never proven, had no bearing on the current dispute. The commission agreed to hear arguments from both sides before deciding. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning at 10, 2 weeks away. Russell and I spent those 2 weeks preparing, going over every detail, every piece of evidence, every potential question. I barely slept. I had moved out of the hotel and was staying on Devon's couch to save money. Every penny counted now. I was $90,000 in debt between legal fees and the predatory loan I had taken out. If I lost this case, I would be bankrupt and destroyed. The hearing day arrived gray and cold. I wore the only suit I owned, a navy blue one I had bought at a thrift store for a job interview years ago. Russell met me outside the Lottery Commission building, a government office complex that smelled like burnt coffee and bureaucracy. Grace arrived with our parents and Patrick Donovan. She was dressed conservatively, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked wholesome and honest. I knew it was theater. The hearing room was small and sterile. 3 commissioners sat at the front. 2 men and 1 woman, all middle-aged and serious. There was a court reporter, a few Lottery Commission staff members. It felt more official than I had expected. Patrick Donovan presented Grace's case first. He was smooth, confident. He outlined their claim, that Grace and I had a long-standing agreement to pool money and purchase lottery tickets together, that the winning ticket was purchased with funds Grace had provided, that I had violated that agreement by claiming sole ownership. He called Grace to testify. She was perfect, calm, sincere, occasionally emotional but not overdone. She described our supposed arrangement, how we had talked about winning the lottery since we were kids, how hurt she was that I had betrayed her trust. Then Patrick called my mother. She testified that she had witnessed Grace give me money for lottery tickets multiple times over the years, including $20 a few weeks before the winning ticket. She seemed genuinely sad, disappointed in her son, who had chosen greed over family. It was all lies, but it was convincing lies. Russell cross-examined both of them, poking holes where he could. Why was there no documentation of this arrangement? No texts, no emails, no written agreement. Grace claimed it was based on trust. Why had I been tracked and photographed without my knowledge? Grace said she just happened to be in the area and took photos of places they both frequented. The commissioners listened, took notes, asked a few clarifying questions. Then it was our turn. Russell presented my case. The timeline of me buying the ticket alone. My financial records showing the purchase came from my account. The security footage from the quick stop. He argued that Grace's claim was fabricated, motivated by jealousy and financial desperation. Then, he called me to testify. I told my story. Growing up in Grace's shadow, paying my own way through everything, buying the lottery ticket on a whim with my own money. I tried to stay calm, factual, but the emotion bled through. During cross-examination, Patrick tried to rattle me. Implied, I was lying. Implied, I was bitter and resentful. Asked about my financial struggles, my debts, whether I was desperate enough to cheat my own sister. I didn't cheat anyone, I said, keeping my voice steady. I bought a ticket. I won. That's the truth. Then Russell called Brianna Phillips to the stand. Patrick Donovan objected immediately. This witness has no direct knowledge of the lottery ticket purchase. Her testimony is irrelevant, Russell argued back. This witness speaks to the credibility of Grace Barrett. The commission needs to understand who is making claims here and whether those claims can be trusted. The commissioners conferred quietly. Then the lead commissioner spoke. We'll allow limited testimony regarding character and credibility. Patrick looked furious. Brianna was sworn in. She was nervous, but composed. Russell walked her through her history with Grace, the incident with Amanda and the stolen laptop, the other instances of manipulation and dishonesty she had witnessed. She presented the emails, the text messages. Russell played the audio recording of Grace at the study session, her voice clear, as she talked about how easy it was to play people if you understood their weaknesses. Grace's face went pale, then flushed red. Patrick tried to discredit Brianna during cross-examination, pointing out that she and Grace had a falling out, that she might be biased. But Brianna remained steady. I have no reason to lie. I barely know Jake Barrett. I'm here because I saw Grace hurt someone before and get away with it. And I don't want to see her do it again. The commission took a 30-minute recess to deliberate. I stood outside the building with Russell, my hands shaking, unable to speak. Everything came down to this. Months of fighting, tens of thousands of dollars in debt, my entire life on hold. Devin had driven up to be there. He stood with me, not saying much, just present. Then my father approached. He walked over slowly, looking older than I remembered. Tired. He glanced back at the building where my mother and Grace were waiting inside. Then looked at me. Jake, can I talk to you for a minute? Alone? Russell and Devin stepped away, giving us space. My father stood there, hands in his pockets, and for a long moment, he said nothing. I saw you, he finally said quietly. That day, when you bought the lottery ticket, I was driving past the quick stop, saw you through the window. I watched you buy it. Just you, alone. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. You knew? I knew. You've known this entire time that Grace was lying, and you said nothing? You backed her up anyway? He looked down at his shoes. Your sister needs the money more than you do. She's always been more fragile, more sensitive. Your mother and we've always had to be careful with her. Make sure she feels supported, secure. You've always been strong, independent. We figured you'd be fine. So you chose her. We chose to protect the child who needed protecting. I'm your child too. I know. He met my eyes then, and I saw something there that might have been regret, or guilt, or just exhaustion. I know, and I'm sorry. But Jake, please, drop this. Your mother's health is suffering. She's been having chest pains, stress from all this. The doctors say she needs to reduce stress. Or she could have a heart attack. If you love your mother at all, end this. Take a settlement. Walk away. For her sake, if not for Grace's. I felt something break inside me. Not sadness. Not anger. Something colder. You're using Mom's health to manipulate me. I'm asking you to think about the consequences of what you're doing. No. You're asking me to sacrifice myself so Grace can win, like you've been asking my whole life. Well, I'm done. Jake, please. You could have told the truth at any point. You could have said you saw me buy that ticket alone. You could have stopped this before it even started. But you chose Grace over me. You chose a lie over the truth. And now you want me to feel guilty about it? My father's face hardened. You're making a mistake. No. You made the mistake. 30 years ago, when you decided one of your kids mattered more than the other, I walked away from him. Russell and Devin fell in step beside me. What did he want? Russell asked. To guilt me into giving up. Said Mom's having chest pains from the stress. That's emotional blackmail. I know. I'm not falling for it. We went back inside. The commissioners returned. The lead commissioner cleared his throat and spoke. "We've reviewed all the evidence presented, heard testimony from both parties and witnesses, and we've reached a decision." My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear. Based on the evidence, we find that Jake Barrett's claim is valid. The ticket was purchased by him alone, and Grace Barrett's counterclaim lacks sufficient credible evidence to support joint ownership. Further, questions have been raised regarding the credibility of the counterclaimant that we cannot ignore. I felt Devon grip my shoulder. The clerical error on the claim form is determined to be immaterial and does not invalidate the claim. Therefore, we rule in favor of Jake Barrett. The full prize amount, minus applicable taxes, will be released to him within 30 business days. Grace Barrett's claim is denied. The room seemed to tilt. I heard Russell beside me saying something, maybe congratulations, but it sounded far away. Grace stood up so fast her chair fell over. Her face was white, then red, contorted with rage. "This is wrong. He's lying. You're all believing a liar." Patrick put a hand on her arm, trying to calm her, but she shook him off. My mother was crying. My father stood frozen. Outside the building, Grace caught up with me in the parking lot. She was screaming, incoherent with fury. "You think you've won? You haven't won anything. I'll sue you. I'll take everything. I'll make your life hell." Russell stepped between us. "Miss Barrett, if you continue to harass my client or file any further baseless legal actions, we will countersue for harassment, defamation, and malicious prosecution. I suggest you walk away now." Grace looked like she wanted to hit someone. She turned to our parents. "Are you just going to stand there? Do something." But they just stood there, silent, defeated. Grace turned back to me one last time. Her voice dropped low, venomous. "I will never forgive you for this." "I don't want your forgiveness," I said quietly. "I just want you out of my life." I got in my truck and drove away. Devon followed in his car. Russell said he would handle any follow-up and send me the final paperwork. I drove for an hour, not really going anywhere, just driving, processing. I had won. After 6 months of hell, I had actually won, but I did not feel victorious. I felt empty, exhausted, relieved. Yes, but also sad. In a way I had not expected. I had won my money, but I had lost my family. And even though they had never really been my family in the way that mattered, losing them still hurt. The Lottery Commission released the funds 4 weeks later. After taxes, legal fees, and paying back the predatory loan with its accumulated interest, I walked away with just over $400,000. It was significantly less than the original $660,000, but it was mine. Earned through a nightmare, but mine. Russell sent me the final invoice with a note. "You fought hard, Jake. You won because you were telling the truth. That matters. Good luck with whatever comes next." I paid him, thanked him, and never wanted to see the inside of a courtroom again. The story of the hearing outcome leaked to the media, just like the original story had. But this time, the narrative was different. The local news that had run the sympathetic piece about Grace now ran a follow-up about the commission's ruling, including mentions of the credibility issues raised during testimony. Grace's social media army turned on her overnight. The people who had supported her, who had called me selfish and greedy, now felt manipulated. The Justice for Grace Facebook group became a place where people discussed how they had been fooled, how Grace had played them. Grace's life unraveled in ways I did not witness directly, but heard about through distant relatives and mutual acquaintances who would occasionally reach out. She was asked to step down from her position at the church Bible study group. People at her work started treating her differently. She posted less and less on social media, and when she did, the comments were no longer supportive. My parents tried to reach out once, about 3 months after the hearing. My mother sent a letter to Devon's address, since they did not know where I was living. The letter was strange. Part apology, part justification, part plea. She said they had made mistakes, but they had done what they thought was right at the time. She said Grace was struggling, that her life had fallen apart, that maybe I could find it in my heart to forgive, to help bridge the gap, to heal the family. I read it twice, then threw it away. I did not respond. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. I moved to a different state, picked a place I had always wanted to visit but never had the time or money for, Colorado. I found a small apartment in Fort Collins, a college town with mountain views and clean air, and people who had never heard of Jake Barrett or his family drama. I paid off all my remaining debts, put money into a retirement account, invested carefully, conservatively, following advice from a financial planner who came recommended by Russell. With what was left, I started a small business. Nothing flashy. A coffee roasting company. I had always loved coffee, and the idea of creating something with my hands, something tangible and real, appealed to me. I called it Second Chance Roasting, because that's what this was. A second chance at life. Devin visited often. He had become more than a friend. He was the brother I should have had, the family I chose, instead of the one I was born into. 6 months after I moved, Brianna Phillips sent me an email checking in. We had stayed in touch, exchanging occasional messages. She said she was glad she could help, glad that the truth had come out. I thanked her again, told her I owed her more than I could repay. She wrote back, "You don't owe me anything. Just live a good life. That's enough." I tried. The coffee business started small, but grew steadily. I hired a few employees, people who needed second chances of their own. A guy named Marcus, who had been in prison for nonviolent drug possession and could not find anyone willing to hire him. A woman named Stephanie, who was rebuilding her life after leaving an abusive marriage. We became a strange little family, bonded by survival and second chances. I heard through the grapevine that Grace had moved away too. Left the state, trying to start over somewhere people did not know her story. I hoped, in a distant way, that she found some peace, but I did not seek her out, did not try to reconcile. Some wounds run too deep. My parents never reached out again after that one letter. I assumed they had chosen their side, and it was not mine. That was okay. I had stopped needing their approval, stopped needing their love. I had found my own worth, defined by my own terms. 2 years after the hearing, I was sitting on my apartment balcony with a cup of fresh roasted coffee from my own company, watching the sun rise over the mountains, when I realized something profound. I was happy, not ecstatic, not euphoric. Just quietly, deeply happy. The lottery win had not bought me happiness. The money itself had brought nothing but pain and conflict. But the fight for it, the refusal to back down, the choice to stand up for myself against impossible odds, that had given me something far more valuable, self-respect. For the first time in my life, I respected myself. I had drawn a line and held it. I had refused to be a victim. I had fought for what was mine, not because of the money, but because of the principle. And in doing that, I had freed myself from 30 years of living in someone else's shadow. The coffee in my hand was rich and bold, notes of chocolate and cherry. I had roasted these beans myself, experimented with the timing and temperature until I got it exactly right. This was my creation, my work, my life. I thought about Grace sometimes, wondered if she had learned anything from what happened, wondered if she ever regretted her choices. But those thoughts came less and less frequently. She was not my burden to carry anymore. Devin called later that morning. He was planning another visit, wanted to know if I was free the following weekend. I told him yes, I would make time. He had stood by me when no one else would. That loyalty meant everything. "How's business?" he asked. "Good. Really good, actually. We just got picked up by a local grocery chain. They want to carry our coffee in 15 stores." That's amazing, man. I'm proud of you. Thanks. Means a lot coming from you. You doing okay otherwise? Like, really okay? Yeah, I really am. And I meant it. 3 years after I won the lottery, I received an unexpected email. The sender was my Aunt Margaret. We had not spoken since those early days when she called me selfish. The subject line read, "I owe you an apology." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. She wrote that she had learned the truth about what really happened. She had talked to Brianna Phillips, who reached out to several family members to tell them what she knew about Grace's history of manipulation. Aunt Margaret said she felt ashamed for believing Grace's lies without hearing my side. She said she had been wrong, and she was sorry. She ended the email by saying I did not have to respond. But she wanted me to know that not everyone in the family had turned their backs on me. Some of them understood now. I read the email 3 times. I thought about replying, about accepting her apology, about maybe rebuilding some family connections. Then I closed my laptop and went back to work. Some apologies come too late. My coffee roasting business continued to grow. We moved into a larger facility, hired more staff, expanded our distribution. Second Chance Roasting became known locally for quality coffee and for being a company that gave people opportunities when others would not. I was proud of what we built. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. Focused mostly on work and building a life I actually wanted to live. I hiked in the mountains on weekends. Learned to rock climb. Took a pottery class just because it sounded interesting. I lived. 4 years after everything happened, Devin got married. He asked me to be his best man, standing up there in a suit that actually fit, watching my best friend marry someone who made him happy. I felt a contentment I had never known in my parents' house. This was family. Chosen. Earned. Real. At the reception, Devin pulled me aside. "You know what the difference is between you now and you 4 years ago? I have more money in my bank account?" He laughed. "No. You smile more. You're lighter. Like you finally put down something heavy you were carrying." He was right. I had put down the weight of trying to earn love that was never going to be given freely. I had stopped measuring my worth by their standards and started defining it by my own. 5 years after the lottery win, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. It was from Grace. My hand shook as I opened it, unsure what to expect. The letter was short. She said she was in therapy, working on herself, trying to understand why she had done the things she did. She said she was sorry, not for the lawsuit specifically, but for everything. She said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again, but she wanted me to know she was trying to be better. It was the first time she had ever apologized to me for anything. I sat with that letter for a long time, read it over and over, tried to figure out how I felt about it. In the end, I wrote back a short note. I told her I appreciated the apology, that I hoped therapy was helping her, and that I wished her well. But I also made it clear that I was not interested in rebuilding a relationship. Too much damage had been done. I sent the letter and felt a strange sense of closure. My parents never apologized, never reached out again. I made peace with that too. Some people are incapable of seeing their own mistakes, and you cannot force them to. All you can do is move forward without them. 6 years after that day in my childhood living room when everything changed, I stood in my coffee roasting facility, watching my employees work, smelling the rich aroma of fresh roasted beans, and realized something important. The lottery was never the real prize. The real prize was learning to value myself, learning to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard. Learning that family is not about blood, but about loyalty and respect and love that is freely given. I had lost a family I never really had, and gained a life that was entirely my own. That was worth more than $660,000 could ever be. I thought about all the people out there who were living in shadows, overlooked and undervalued by people who were supposed to love them. I wanted them to know something important. You are not defined by how others see you. You are not less valuable because someone else is chosen over you. Your worth is inherent, not earned through compliance or sacrifice. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Standing up for myself cost me my family, cost me months of agony and stress, cost me financially and emotionally. But it gave me something irreplaceable. It gave me myself. I would make that trade every single time. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I locked up the facility, got in my truck, and drove home. Not to a hotel room or a couch in a friend's house, but to my own apartment, in my own chosen city, living my own chosen life. I was 35 years old, and for the first time ever, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Some people win the lottery and lose everything. I won the lottery, and lost everything I thought mattered, only to discover what actually did. That realization, that clarity, that peace, was the real jackpot, and I would never take it for granted. If you have ever been overlooked, undervalued, or told that someone else's needs matter more than yours, let me tell you something true. You deserve better. You deserve to be seen, valued, and loved for who you are, not for what you can provide. And if the people who are supposed to love you cannot or will not do that, you have every right to walk away and find people who will. I did. And it saved my life. That is my story. That is what happened when I refused to give half my lottery winnings to my golden child sister. I lost a family, but I found myself, and that made all the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure or expectations that felt unfair? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I would love to hear your perspective. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think or feel something, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this story and maybe helps someone else who needs to hear it. And if you want to hear more stories about real people overcoming impossible situations, about finding strength in the darkest moments, about choosing yourself when everyone else expects you to sacrifice, then subscribe to this channel. There are more stories coming, and I think you will want to hear them. Finally, if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who is struggling with family pressure or manipulation, or just feeling invisible in their own life, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find the courage to choose yourself when you need to stand up for what is right even when it is hard, and to build a life that makes you genuinely happy. Take care of yourselves. You are worth it.